How can you imagine a man you've never seen before? That's the question that's ruined my life. And it all started with one job interview. I hate to confess, and I feel disgusted even telling you this, but it started with porn, late nights, boredom, an idle browser tab. I'd finish my work, pour a glass of whiskey I didn't need, and then disappear down those digital rabbit holes. At first it was just porn, normal stuff, stress relief, I told myself, harmless, everybody does it, right? But like all things that rot you from the inside, it evolved. I started pulling images from social media, Instagram, Facebook, even old LinkedIn profile pictures. I had a whole hidden folder buried so deep in my hard drive, even the IT guys couldn't have sniffed it out. Women I knew, some I didn't. Colleagues' wives, friends of friends, even Marianne Walker, the wife of my boss, Larry Walker. That one was the worst, the most reckless, but I still did it. There was something so intoxicating about turning real faces into fantasies. I'd run them through AI filters, hyper-realistic ones that made them look like something out of a studio shoot. Late at night, in the blue glow of my monitor, I'd shape them, enhance, distort, control. It became a ritual, a secret I wore like a second skin. Nobody knew, or so I thought. The morning after one of those nights, where I'd pushed the envelope way too far, I walked into the office for what should have been a routine day. I was scheduled to conduct back-to-back interviews for a senior manager position. I was the head of the department, marketing strategy, and had full autonomy on hiring decisions. The role was crucial, and I took it seriously. The day dragged. Candidate after candidate came in, buttoned up resumes, firm handshakes, polite smiles, the usual corporate theater. By late afternoon, I was wiped. My coffee had gone cold. The windows cast long stripes of tired sunlight across the carpet. I was glancing over the resume of the final candidate, name Jashua Johnson, when the door opened. Then he walked in. Last slot of the day. Young guy. 20s maybe. Messy hair, like he hadn't bothered combing it. Shirt slightly wrinkled. But it wasn't his appearance that unsettled me. It was the way he moved. His gait was too smooth, too fluid, like he was gliding instead of walking, like he'd been here before, like he knew every inch of the room already. He smiled the whole time, not the polite kind, but something too wide, too fixed, and his eyes, they didn't scan the room. They went straight to me. Locked on. He shook my hand finally, but held it a second too long. His grip was just slightly tighter than it needed to be. He sat down without waiting to be told. "Okay, Jashua, let's start with your background," I said, trying to sound casual. He gave some generic spiel about working in data architecture, then immediately veered off into something about designing emotional feedback loops in consumer psychology and how he thrives under emotional pressure. I asked him to elaborate. He just smiled. "I move between things easily," he said. "Adapt fast, especially when the environment feels familiar." I felt my stomach knot. Something was off. I tried a more grounded question. "Sometimes we have to stay late to meet deadlines. Would that be a problem for you?" He nodded slowly. "Oh, I love late nights, especially when you know how to make them fun." The way he said it, measured, like a dare, made me look up from my notes. I asked about how he handles pressure from leadership. He blinked once. "Depends who's watching. Some bosses like to pretend they're saints during the day, but nights, that's when the masks slip." There was a pause. "You ever work late, Eric?" he asked, too casually. My fingers clenched around my pen. "Excuse me, what?" I said. He just knocked it off with a weird grin on his face, like I was supposed to make out the rest. I pushed forward. "What would you say is your biggest weakness?" "Impulse control," he said, almost instantly. "Sometimes I go too far with things, especially when I'm curious." Then he tilted his head, smiled like a child caught red-handed. "You fascinate me, Eric." I froze. Part of me wanted to call security. Part of me wanted to confront him on his attitude, on the bizarre, invasive answers. But I couldn't. I sat there frozen, mouth dry, heartbeat thudding in my ears. It felt like he was in full control, like he was steering the entire encounter. My own office felt smaller somehow, the walls pressing in like they were listening, like they belonged to him now. And then, right as I was about to end it, he leaned forward. "Eric," he said, low and too calm, "brace yourself. This next bit might make you wet your pants." My throat went dry. It wasn't a threat so much as a quiet, satisfied prediction. He sounded like someone watching a small disaster he'd already set in motion. He smiled wider. 37 folders. Last modified. 2:13 a.m. last night. The one you renamed Taxes. Funny, that's where you keep her, right? I didn't respond. I couldn't. My blood turned to ice. "Your boss's wife," he continued, tapping the table with one pale finger. "Marianne Walker. That AI version with the red lingerie? Bold choice. Realistic, though. I'd say a solid 9.7 out of 10. The room spun. I couldn't breathe. My hands shook so badly my pen rattled on the desk. My voice came out raw and small, trembling with each syllable. "Wait, what the hell are you talking about? Who are you?" I'm calling security," I managed. He didn't flinch. If anything, he leaned in, unhurried and utterly unbothered, as if my panic were only entertaining. "Go ahead," he said, calm as a man ordering coffee. "Let's see how fast they come when you tell them why." He sat back like he owned the room, like this was all part of a script he had rehearsed. And then, slowly, with that same weird, satisfied smile, he said the thing that made my world tilt even further. "You'll give me this job," he said, his voice now barely a whisper, "or your career's finished. Everyone will know." His smile shifted again, stretching and twisting as though it belonged to someone else. His eyes glinted like a predator's, flicking over me while he spoke. "I've got a second-by-second recording of everything you've done, Eric. Who exactly you downloaded, how you altered them with your precious AI, especially her. What was her name again? Ah, yes, Marianne Walker, and what you really do with those altered versions." He laughed then, a low, ugly chuckle that rolled over me like ice water. "Imagine what Mr. Larry Walker will do when he finds out what you've been up to with his wife's picture, Eric. How will you face the world after that, you pervert? You'd be done for life, Eric." And then he just stood, smooth and deliberate, like he had all the time in the world. He stretched, slowly, like a man waking from a nap, shoulders rolled back, spine arched, arms loose and confident, the kind of deep, self-satisfied stretch someone does when they know they've already won. Then he walked to the door, no hurry in his step, just that same gliding motion, calm and unshaken. But right before his hand touched the doorknob, he stopped. He looked back over his shoulder at me one final time, eyes gleaming with something between amusement and venom. That twisted smirk returned, wider than before, like it was carved into his face. "I hope my joining letter will be ready soon," he said, soft but cutting. Then he turned and walked out like he'd never been there at all. My legs were numb, my hands gripped the arms of the chair so tightly they hurt, and somehow the silence after he left was even louder than his voice. He walked out like nothing had happened. No one gave him a second glance. That night I didn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan, listening to it thud like a slow heartbeat. Every creak of the walls felt like something shifting in my periphery. The silence wasn't empty. It felt like it was watching me. I kept replaying his voice in my head, those smirks, the way he sat there like he owned the air I breathed. How the hell did he know? I turned the whole apartment upside down that night like some desperate amateur detective, checked every socket, every vent, pulled books off shelves, yanked cords, crawled under furniture. I even pulled out my phone flashlight to scan for pinhole cameras. Nothing, just me losing my mind. Then I ran antivirus scans. Once, twice, 10 times. Maybe some spyware, remote access, Trojans, keyloggers. Nothing. Clean. So clean it almost felt fake, like it was mocking me. I couldn't wrap my head around what had happened in that interview. 1 minute, I was the confident head of my department, the guy who could read a candidate before they sat down. The next, I was unraveling under his stare, his words, his smile. Those 30 minutes didn't just shake me, they took something from me, hollowed me out. I came in late the next morning, barely functioning after a night with no sleep. My eyes felt sandpapered, and my shirt collar was still damp with the stress sweat from tossing in bed for hours. I'd seriously considered calling in sick, taking the day off, but staying home would have made things worse. I knew it. I'd just sit there stewing, replaying every second of that interview, hearing his voice over and over until I lost my mind. No, I needed distraction. I needed noise, people, tasks, anything that would drown out the echo of Jashua. And yet, as I walked in, every eye I made contact with felt like it already knew my secret. Every glance burned. I already felt caught red-handed and couldn't keep my eyes on anyone for long, convinced they were reading my late-night obsession straight off my face. Martha, my assistant, walked into my office a few minutes later, holding a manila folder. She paused when she saw me slouched behind my desk. "Morning, sir. You don't seem well. All good?" I gave a weak shrug and forced a tight smile. "Long night," I muttered. She nodded slowly, reading more than I gave her, but didn't push. Then she held up the folder, her tone shifting slightly. "I forgot to tell you. There's a candidate who couldn't make it yesterday. Some family emergency. He showed up this morning. Says he's really desperate for the position. Been pleading since we opened. I had him wait in the reception area, thought I'd check with you before sending him in." I rubbed my temples. "Martha, we wrapped interviews yesterday. We're already past that." She hesitated. "He just won't leave, sir. Says he'll wait as long as it takes. Honestly, he looks like he needs this job badly." I sighed, tension still crawling under my skin. "Just drop the resume. I'll let you know." She nodded, set the folder on my desk, and left quietly. I didn't touch it for a few minutes, just sat there, staring at the wall, trying to will my heart to slow down. Then finally, I flipped it open and froze. The name at the top hit me like a Mike Tyson knockout punch. Jashua Johnson. Same face. Same guy. Same unnerving smile in his headshot. I picked up the intercom and buzzed her. "Martha, can you come back in for a second?" She returned within moments, still holding her notepad. "This man came in yesterday. I interviewed him at 4:30 and closed his file. Why is he back here now?" She frowned, genuinely confused. "Sir, no. Yesterday's last interview was Samuel. Remember the tall, curly-haired boy? I sent everyone in one by one. This guy never came in." My face twisted in disbelief, heat rising to my temples. "What do you mean he never came in?" I snapped, pointing at the folder. "I interviewed him right here, in this chair, in front of me. That arrogant, lousy, unfit for the role clown. I spoke to him for half an hour." My voice cracked under the weight of confusion because none of it made sense. He had been there. I had seen him. I wasn't imagining it, was I? Out of utter disbelief and confusion, I just walked slowly to the window blinds, pulled them down, and there he was, in the waiting area, nervously adjusting his tie, fidgeting like a college kid before finals, whispering something to the receptionist. Same face, but not the same man. This version of Jashua was timid, anxious, sweating through his collar. But I knew, no, I seriously knew. It was him, the same bastard who whispered my secrets just 24 hours before. I could have thrown the folder in the trash, could have warned HR. But fear, real fear, doesn't let you think rationally. My mind raced with nightmare visions. What if those late-night private moments got leaked? What if people saw the files, the names, the faces, what I had done to them? I heard disgusted whispers in the office, Larry Walker's face when he saw his wife's photo twisted into my fantasy. And the worst of them all, I felt sick just picturing my name trending all over social media and flashing across the news. Department head sacked for pleasuring himself to boss's wife. Gross. I saw myself exposed, ruined, humiliated beyond repair. That kind of fear doesn't let you think straight. It grabs your spine and yanks you forward. "I know this candidate," I told Martha. "He's a great fit. Let's move him forward. No interview needed." She looked surprised, her brow creasing. "But sir, a while back you said he was arrogant and unfit. And now you're saying he's a good fit? That you know him?" Stress boiled in my chest and I snapped sharper than I meant to. "Just do as I say, Martha. I know what's best for this department. Don't question me." She nodded quickly, backing off. HR took my word without question. I had built my credibility over years. A stamp from me was gold. From that moment on, I couldn't bring myself to face that office again. I couldn't stand the thought of seeing him there, working alongside me like nothing had happened. The idea of sharing the same space with Jashua made my skin crawl. So before his official joining date, I quietly drafted my resignation. Policy required a month's notice, but I angled it so my final day would land just a few days before his start date. I didn't care if it raised eyebrows. It was the only way out. When my final day arrived, they threw me a cake I didn't eat and a card I didn't read. I packed my office in silence, pretending it was just burnout, just personal reasons, like I'd claimed weeks earlier when I resigned. At home, I scrubbed everything, wiped the drives, deleted backups, formatted external disks. I watched those folders disappear one by one like sins burning to ash. A week later, I got a message. It came from an unknown number. No name, no contact saved. Just a message hanging there on my screen. "Sir, this is Jashua Johnson. Thank you for approving me for the role. I didn't even expect to be considered so quickly. May I ask, why did you do that?" I stared at it for what felt like forever. Never replied. Never had the courage. It's been 4 years now. I live in a different city. Smaller place. Quieter. I've never gone back to those habits. Haven't even come close. Because every time I feel the urge, even a flicker, I feel it. I still see that stare, always from a corner of the room that shouldn't even have shadows. I still feel that grin curling around the edges of my dreams, and every so often, that quiet whisper slides into my skull, asking if I've forgotten what I did, if I've forgotten him, and I stop. You want to know what haunts me? It's not the guilt, not even the blackmail. It's the question, the one I've never been able to answer. How can I imagine a man I had never seen before? He was real, but who was he? And above all, which one of them was real?